Hi guys, welcome back to Left Seat, Right Seat. It's just me and Jeff today, and we're here to talk about dealing with corporate and getting out, and then having to go into corporate, especially. So, yeah, and the things that happen and what corporate's looking for, and what you should expect when you get there. All right. So, for my experience, I've been working in the film industry for 10 plus years now. And it's really different on my end. Like, I see all the corporate stuff and everything else that's going down, but I'm really just more of a contractor. So I don't have to deal with all of it per se, even though I get it shoved down my throat. But then I look at you and I'm like, I don't really technically have to tell you I'm going on vacation because I'm contract. So I don't need your permission. Like, I need to tell you if I want to come back to this contract, but I don't need your permission really. Yeah, and for Jeff, he's worked at some Fortune 500s, and so he's had to deal with that and some other issues. But as we go along, we'll just tell you about that and how it works out differently for other people. All right, Jeff, you want to go ahead and start with your story? And I can't hear you.
How am I now?
There you go.
I'm back.
All right.
All right. When I first got out, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do, and I was following my wife around. Actually, I was an Air Force spouse, so I was
Best corporation ever.
got out without a plan. We've talked about that before, so I was following that um, line of nothingness for a while, right? So then I said, okay, I'm going to start applying for jobs and put my resume out there. And I don't know why, but I started going towards sales, and I ended up landing with a Fortune 500 company who had a great sales program. To this day, it's still, I look at it as really good training. Some of the best training I've had outside the military. And so I jumped in with both feet. The top guy in the country at the time was making like $300,000 a year doing what I did.
Right.
He was in a different area though, and I'll say I was selling roofing, siding, and windows products in people's homes, and then the ultimate job for that. I'm not going to say who I worked for, but you could probably guess. And so the big corporation with a lot of backing, with a lot of knowledge and stuff, and ultimately there's always some little things about some of that kind of crank on you a little bit, right? So you
Right.
come out of the military and you expect things to be a certain way in the civilian world they're not, right? In the corporate world they're not the same.
Right.
So I dealt with a lot of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you know
Yeah.
you, you're in it now. It's been a while since I've done it, but um, of course, as military folks, you're always this day and age, right, compared to other times in America's history, we're seen as combat multipliers even for civilian agencies, right? Where we show up on time, clean, do our job. We've talked about management of military folks is typically pretty easy because they're
Right.
self-starters.
Right.
So corporate loves that part, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And speaking to that, it's like, so a lot of these companies now, going in, they'll say, "Oh, do you have the military preference?" And they'll give you that, and they like to see that because they know once you come out the military, more than likely you're just going to come in. They're going to give you a task, and then you're going to get it done, and you don't need to be like micromanaged the whole way. So that's why a lot of companies now like the military guys and that kind of stuff because they don't have to hold our hands. We go through
Right.
training, and after training, like you get whatever you want to get, and then they're like, okay, you're on your own. Continue on, and we'll see you later. For most other people, sometimes they have to be micromanaged. Even when you come out of the military, even if you got the ADHD, and you're squirrel, right? Now you still like you look at the squirrel and you're like, all right, let me get back to it, right? And then other people, they see the squirrel and they're off on a rabbit hole, somewhere else they're chasing. So I mean, for me especially, I see the squirrel like 100 times a day at least, but I always, come back and get focused, right? So that's one part of it that they do like about it in dealing with that. But also, right, it's also like dealing with management is different, a lot different than
For sure.
dealing with, uh, you know, your NCOs or your officers or whatever you were in when you were in, right? Even if you were um, a in charge of something, the dealing with management is different, and also managing is different. It's a whole nother world, right? So, like, what I know when I'm in, like, how I have to deal with management is really, I won't say like walking on eggshells, but I can't just kick in the office and be like, "Hey, you dumb," like,
Right.
like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't understand why I'm doing this, So, like I used to do when I was in the army, like I would, for me personally, I'd go talk to my NCOs and my officers, and I'd be like, I don't understand why I'm doing this. This is stupid, like the grass got mowed
It seems
yesterday.
like it would be the opposite, doesn't it, though? Like, it
Yeah,
seems like typically, military, you're not going to discuss stuff. You're just going to, march forward. And that's not always the case.
right,
You can discuss things sometimes, depending on what type of unit you're in,
right,
right?
right, right.
But in corporate world, they don't want to hear nothing sometimes.
Yes,
And that
exactly.
it seems like it would be the opposite.
Yeah, it's definitely the opposite. And like, you go into the corporate world, and like, well, and I mean, for that too, it also depends on your manager and
Sure.
which company, but for the most part, they don't want to hear your opinions. They just don't care, and they just want to get it done, and they want it done their way. And it's, if you're doing it their way, it's fine. And sometimes, even if you're getting it done and you didn't do it the right way, the way that they wanted it to, that's like almost, grounds for getting fired. They're like, no, you have to do it this way, and it's like, well, that way is not as efficient, and I have a way that works for me, and I don't care. We do it this way because, one, the lawyers tell us, or whoever tells us to do it this way, and this is the way that we're not going to get sued. The way that you're doing it, people are happy, but we might get sued, right? Better we have a better chance of winning a lawsuit, even if we do get sued, by doing it this exact way. So it's a
That's
lot
a
different.
good point, though. That drives the train a lot, right? For
Yeah.
insurance and
Mhm.
being sued, and HR stuff, and
Yeah.
the whole world, the whole machine behind corporate is different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
And the bottom dollar every single day, right?
right. It's definitely all about making that money, So, and not for necessarily for the employee, just for the company itself, So, and then like when oh, what were you saying?
You were. I was just thinking about what we were talking about before we started recording,
Yeah.
and corporate almost shells hiring contractors all the time
Right.
for insurance and HR purposes. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So for the most part, where corporate is going now, and I thought it was really just in my industry, but I've been talking to a lot of other people, and even in the finance world, like definitely in construction, the main thing is now the bigger companies are going to contract out smaller companies, and they're going to say, all right, this is your guys' plan. We're giving you this much money to do what you have to do. And they do that now because it's cheaper for them to contract out another company, because they don't have to pay insurance like for the employees. They don't have to pay like liability insurance and anything else. They're just they give the money to the smaller companies. So you might have like 3 or 4 different foremans, like if you're on a construction job doing things, right? For me, we have like multiple companies working on the same movie, and then it all comes together at the end. I mean, if anybody's ever sat through the credits of any of like the Avengers,
Yeah.
any of those things, you're sitting there for like
Thousands
20
of
minutes.
people.
Yeah, you're sitting there for 20 minutes and you're seeing oh, here's a Vancouver office, or here's this office, or there's LA office, and there, it's literally around the world, and it all comes together. So they contract it out, and so that they don't have to deal with all the liability insurance and everything else, and
Imagine they don't have to deal with the HR functions anymore, or
HR, any of that.
payments and like taxes, like all that stuff. It's all on
Right.
that contracted company, right? So
Right.
it's interesting. It's just an interesting way of doing business that is everywhere now, I suppose.
Right. And for most companies, they also get the tax incentives, right? So if you're doing construction in a certain part of the world, like, oh yeah, it's going to cost us umpteen $billion to build this tax, but the government in that city or that certain part of the world is saying, if you build here, we'll give you a tax break, right? And it's the same with like in movies as well. Like if we go overseas to work on, if a portion of the movie goes overseas, like the whole company gets a tax break. So even though they're paying this money out to all these other companies to contract out, at the end, once it's all done, they get a tax break just because a portion of whatever they did was worked on overseas in a separate company, and they get that on the whole film. And then, sometimes it's just on the portion that was worked on there, but still it's a tax break enough. So that's another thing why they would like to go overseas and contract it out, so they don't have to open an office in another place.
So if you're going to go work for big corporate, you may not work for them. You might work for a subcontracted company,
Right.
work for big corporate,
Right.
and then that can get strange too, I imagine.
Right. And it's also in the finance world for that, the tax incentives as well. Like you'll see that's a big deal that runs corporate, like tax incentives. And it doesn't matter which company you're in, because I have a friend who's in finance in downtown LA, and their company is not, even though their main office is in downtown, their company is not based out of downtown. It's still in LA and it's still in, California, but it's not based in downtown for tax reasons. And that's a big thing for companies nowadays. Like, so any way they can save a dollar, they're going to try to save that dollar. And that just makes sense, and that's how it works. But
So here's a question for military folks, working higher order jobs. Like you, I know for a fact, like you, I don't know how many contracting jobs you've had or different contractors, but you've had a lot of different gigs,
right.
right? Maybe you can explain some of that, how that works, because that's kind of like the way the future is.
Right. So for me, going contract, it's really difficult. Well, I'm not say difficult, but it's like different than you would get into a not salaried, a staff position. All right.
Okay.
So for me, like, the goal in my industry is to actually land a staff position. Some people actually don't want it at all, but some people is like, oh, it's the main goal, and I'll admit, when I first came in, I didn't really want a staff position because I was working 9 to 10 months out the year and traveling the rest. And I was making enough money to, pay all my bills and still go party. And,
So that's a good advantage. There's advantage one, right?
Right. There's an advantage for the staff, or for contracting, but as time goes on, the jobs are getting fewer and fewer because more people are taking the business overseas, and I don't want to move overseas. My family's here, so I don't want to have to deal with that. So
Played that game already.
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't want to go. It's not like if I go overseas this time, I'm getting shot at, but like,
Never know.
well, yeah, it's a possibility anywhere nowadays, right? But
True.
but yeah, so with that, with the contracting, it's a lot different. Like, if you're staffed up, you have to tell the company, hey, I'm taking vacation at this time. And you have to request, really, not tell them, but you have to request vacation days. And really, they can tell you no. and that's that. Like, all right, well, let me reschedule. I hope I didn't buy my tickets already.
Your gig for the contract might even like stipulate you cannot take vacation during this time frame or something, right?
Right.
Does
That
it
is
get
also
that it gets that specific sometimes, I imagine.
right. That is also a thing. Like if so for me, whenever I go in on a contract, if I know I have a vacation coming up, I tell them already on the spot, like, hey, I've got this vacation coming up. Like tickets are already booked and there's nothing you can do about it. And, you know, I've had companies that are like, oh, they've tried to buy me out of my vacation.
Seriously. Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like, oh man, crap's hitting the fan. Can you stay? And I'm like, no. Like I'm going back for a cousin's birthday, and you know that's not going to change. The date
That's
of that is not
important.
going to
And
change.
those things
Yeah.
are important too, right?
Right.
Not as
Right.
important as, I mean, they're more important than a freaking movie, but anyway, that's my opinion.
No, no. I totally agree with it. That's why I
Yeah.
told them no. Like I'm not. I'm not. I mean, and they were gonna. I want to say they were gonna triple all my expenses. So like whatever I paid already.
That's an incentive.
Yeah, up to that point, they were like, "We're not even going to double it. We're going to triple it just so you can stay." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm gone." I told you guys this way before. Everybody agreed to it, all the way up to the head guy, and
Yeah.
that's it. Like, I mean, even if I stay, I'm gonna be like in vacation mode for like a couple of days, not getting anything done anyway. So,
So that brings up the point that, corporate is all about getting the job done.
right,
Not that the military wasn't, right? But,
right,
and the military would use you up as well.
yeah,
But some of that is, I guess, similar.
yeah, definitely, yeah. You know, so
Usually
yeah,
counts as priority, but, you know, hey, you got out of the military so you could see your family. So
right, right,
you all got to make your own decisions on that one.
exactly. You know, and I think also with contracting, it's a little bit more nerve wracking, right? At times than with staff, because with staff, even if there's not a lot of work going on, you're still coming in and still getting paid. And when you're a contractor, if there's no work and it's in the contract, they could just let you go right away, or they can extend your contract. It all depends. So that's the difference, and that is one of the main driving reasons that companies are now going away from staffing people up, because they're like, all right, every company, doesn't matter if it's finance, movies, like, you know, if you own a Jiffy Lube, oil changes or anything, like there's always a part of the year where each company has their seasons, right? So say Jiffy Lube oil changes, right? With summer, right, for travel, like they're gonna need more help in the summertime, all right? Luckily, kids are getting off school at that time, right? And they need like summer jobs, you know, like finance, you know, they have their quarterly reports and everything else that they have to go, you know, for the movies, like the big time for movies is the summer blockbusters. So they staff up in wintertime. So, you know, you're getting a lot of jobs in the wintertime, and then summer comes around and it's like crickets, you know? So it's really good. And like in that aspect, if you really want a job that gives you freedom, contracting is great. But if you just want a steady job and a steady income, perhaps you got a family like I do now, and yet you need to take care of, like that steady income is way more important, you know. So that's the thing, and that's something to look out for, something to think about, you know. Like, you know, also if like we were talking about, like if you want to open your own business or whatnot and be management, like management in the civilian side is, like I mentioned earlier, it's not that much different than on the military side. But the thing is, you have to, like in the military, you can, you know, also, like I said, kick in the door and be like, what's going on, you goddamn stupid whatevers, right? Like you can cuss them out, whatever, make them do push-ups until, you know, whatever, and you can just continue on. But in the civilian world, like you have to bring them in, you have to, like, literally it's just counseling
You make
papers.
people cry a lot.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there are those too, right? You know, sometimes HR talks to you, and sometimes you don't want to talk to HR because you know that person who's, they're called, you know, whenever somebody goes into their office, that means they're getting let go, right? There's that HR person, or that manager or whatever, right? Like the one who does all the firing. So anytime you have to go see that person, you're like, ooh, what's going on, right? So that's another thing too, right? You can get fired in uh, corporate world very easily, just from management or whatever. I mean, you have like, it's even as staff, it's, if you have too many bad like annual reports, they can be like, they can look at that and say, okay, you're not performing, or or if you're not performing, right? That's another big thing that they go off. Like, if you're not
Depends
performing,
on your industry too. Some industries have a hard time getting people, right?
right?
Especially like medical stuff, right? So nurses, there's a huge nursing shortage.
Yeah,
I think we discussed some of that before with other people, but you know, nurses, because there is a shortage, some of those nurses who probably don't need to be on anymore are hanging out still. That's
right.
kind of scary.
Yeah,
Or they'll hire them back real quick in a different capacity just
right,
because they are a nurse. So,
right.
that's a different industry, but that's corporate as well. And,
Mhm.
you know, so let's circle back for a second. You just made me think of something about opportunity, right?
Mhm.
Opportunity to start your own contracting company in
Right.
the industry that you're in and being one of those contracting companies. Because for us as veterans, right, some states, specifically New York, I know, I believe it's California and
Yeah,
others, almost
yeah.
every state now though has veterans preference
Hmm.
for business contracting with the government.
Right.
And also on the flip side, in New York here specifically, they've made it so, like for construction industry, a certain percentage of their personnel have to be military,
Oh wow.
or veterans rather. Sorry, veterans. And so a lot of times they'll contract a portion of their business out to a veteran-owned business
Mm.
to meet that minimum criteria for doing business with the state or county, or even just for general stuff.
Right.
So, I'm not an expert on that, but I'm just saying that that is out there and that's an opportunity. Let's say let's say, for example, you, CJ, you could start your own contracting business doing graphic design or movie, stuff, and,
Right.
go into, say, hey, I'm a veteran owned business and, you know, I meet this criteria for you, so hire me. And then you have
Right.
your own
Right.
people, right? That's just an example. And there's a lot of different industries you can do that in. That maybe you're doing the corporate thing, you're not enjoying being managed, so you manage yourself, and
Right.
then maybe others because you have experience in leadership.
Yeah.
So that's the what I see as the big thing for civilian world for veterans is at some point, depending on what you want to do, you just start your own business. Easier
Hmm.
said than done, but then you get into contracting and work for the corporate world, and you know you're taking on a lot to do that too. But then you're responsible for HR and
Yeah.
payroll and taxes and insurance and all that stuff. And
Right.
big corporate that you're working for, it may not be. So
Yeah.
you may
Exactly.
not want to do that.
Right. 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 Yeah. So I mean that's also part of the deal. Once once you think about opening your own business, then you have to think about all of that, and then you have to also know that if you want to open like LLC or whatever, you have to know all the charges, the annual charges that are going to come with that, and the annual fees for having that. It's different for every state, so I don't want to say. Some states, it's and depending on how big your company is, it's also a bigger um, charge. So if it's just like a personal business, some states you're paying like it's like $700. Other states you're paying a couple thousand. Like it's different. So you have to look into that too. Like, am I gonna make enough to cover that charge and some? I mean, 700 to a couple $1,000s a year is not much, but like, I mean, it's a lot if you're a small business, but I mean, it's not much to live on. So yeah, you're probably gonna make that, but you're gonna have to incorporate all those into your calculations, whether you want to open your own business as well, and then all the
Right.
other charges that come with that.
And then you
You
got to
know,
bid on contracts. Yeah, you have to
right,
research to bid on contracts, and then hire the
right,
people to fulfill a contract if you get one, and then you're the one letting people go. When the season of
right,
work's not there and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And that may play to your strengths, having been in the military, depending on what you did. So
Right. Yeah. And then also like yeah, as you were saying, like, you don't want to underbid either, like by too much, because then they'll go with you, and then
yeah, and then
oh
you're
yeah,
doing it. You're doing everything.
and then you're doing everything, and then if it doesn't, you know, if you're not meeting deadlines or whatever, then it's on you, and you're gonna be like, well, I don't have the resources because I underbid, so I don't have the money to pay to get it done that fast. And then they're just going to look at you and be like, well, that's on you. We gave you this money. So you need to figure it out. And sometimes you lose money that way if you underbid. And it's very difficult for people to figure that out, like when you're first coming in. So definitely if you're going to do it yourself, you have to research what other companies are charging and stuff, and that kind of stuff. So
Business intelligence.
right, you know, and also too, I think we were talking earlier, Jeff, about the wage differences between management and just incoming employees and such. So the wage differences are very drastic in the corporate
Sure.
world. So
Yeah. So my experience, doing sales for this company, I mentioned before, the top sales guy was making a lot of money. Was in a different area of the country though, with different standards of what equipment had to go on a roof. For instance, where I was at, there was no municipal standard, so it was just the lowest common denominator type stuff. So I struggled to make a lot of sales doing that, but I did make a bunch, right? And so my big thing was there was a lot of middle managers between me and getting stuff done, and they all made a salary that was quite a bit of money. But I never always figured out exactly what they were doing. You're looking at, your area sales manager would be the next one above me as a salesman, and then there'd be like a regional sales manager or maybe a state manager before that. And a lot of those guys were really super redundant in my mind, right? I wasn't in their shoes every day, but they were impediments for me getting my job done or getting my money sometimes. And after a while, that really started to grate on me. It didn't make me want to be a sales manager. It made me just want to collapse the structure a little bit. That middle management, and a lot of people, a lot of corporate, entities have done that over years. They've got rid of middle management because they have these fiefdoms that they make up, and it's just a power base for collecting their paycheck. So I had some issues with like taking care of customers was always the thing, like taking care of soldiers. And I always took care of my customers. And the reason why is, and that's what I was taught at my sales training, was, each customer is worth to this Fortune 500 company X $100,000 a year. So they'd always bend over backwards to fix stuff. But at the same time, they'd really do some strange stuff to waste money in the interim, right? So they were always really pretty thrilled about taking away my commission if there was an issue. But paying back the customer usually took a while. And I ended up moving on because of that. And, I was moving around as well, like I said before. So, I wouldn't have been there forever, but I could have transferred that job to different states and places just because it's a sales job. Sales jobs are pretty ubiquitous, and you can get in on the ground floor and you make as much as your potential, right? It's, sweat equity on those ones. And but I chose not to work with the company anymore. But I do buy their stock because it's gone up quite a bit over the years. But
right.
Sometimes it boggles my mind.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about.
And that's one thing too. You got your own moral values going into a place, and if the place doesn't share your moral values, or how you feel about stuff, or it could be the other way. They have too many moral values, and you want to, party like a rock star all weekend and not be hassled on Monday.
Right.
I don't know, but there's a fit for you out there. You just might have to suck it up until you find that place or start your own business.
Right.
I would never expect to get out of the military and have that be your job forever in one place. There's almost always an interim job or vocation or position that you're going to be in before you get to maybe what you'd rather do.
Right.
And we've seen that a lot with a lot of people we've interviewed.
Yep.
Even if they had a plan,
Hmm.
they get out and that's their plan, and then they, things change, families happen, kids get born, divorces happen,
Right.
and adjustments to civilian life, and then you're onto your fourth vocation, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So the
Yeah.
transition is always happening, and I think
Hmm.
that's kind of what our show is about in a ways. It's not just going from military to civilian. There's transitions always in your life, and those are
Right.
adjustments you have to make. So this is just one of them.
Right. Right. And yeah, and like Jeff said, it's very, I won't say difficult. I would say it's not difficult for a military person to jump into a corporate setting.
Challenging.
It's challenging in the way that it's a whole nother mindset that you have to go about, so and it's different. Like a lot of I know a lot of people who have been in the corporate world and then they were like, I can't do this. They either go back into the military or they join like the police or Leo or some kind of like federal gig that is less corporate but maybe a little bit more bureaucratic. So I don't know if it's any different.
Well, it's more similar to the military structure, probably.
Right, exactly. So they have more of a structure and they don't have to deal with the certain aspects of corporate that some people get ground up on, like the money is the bottom line and that's the ultimate deal. Like it's all about profit in corporate. Like it doesn't matter where you're at, it doesn't matter what industry you're at or wherever. Corporate's all about profit. And if you become and when you become a bit your own business owner, you'll understand it. It's not that you're sitting here saying, oh man, I need to save all this money because I just want money. No, it's like I need to save everything I can in case something happens. I have a backup. I could still pay my employees. Like, you have to have 2 to 3 months of, money for your employees. Like if you're, like I said, if no jobs come up, you could send your employees on vacation, but if they're staff, then you still have to pay them while they're on vacation. So if they're contractors, you can say, hey, contract's done, and you can let them go, and like, hey, well, hopefully you're free in the next couple of months. We'll bring you back. It's different, but you don't have to pay them in that time frame. Now it's on the contractor to figure that out. But if you have employees, then now you have to think of, oh man, I have 2 to 3 months that I have to find another gig so I could pay all these people. And in that time, you have to have money to pay all those people. So you need that backup. And every time you're looking at it, it's like, all right, how can I get more money? How can I save? And that's why you see a lot of these corporations looking at tax breaks and everything else. So and that's a different argument for a different day, but that's why they do it, and it's because they have millions sometimes of employees, millions of employees that they have to deal for, and then they're also providing health insurance for their families, or not providing but assisting with the health insurance for those guys, these millions of dollars or millions of employees, families. Some of these guys got maybe 10 kids, so you have one employee, but now you're dealing with like 12 health insurance, right, that you're helping out with, so it's a different story, like when you're on that level, like as the owner, as the business. So I know a lot of people look at corporate and they're like, dude, all they're all about is the money. And it's like, yes, but there's a reason, right? Like, if I, if you own the company and you're sitting there saying, man, I want to make this much this year, this is my goal. Like, and if you don't have a company and you're not making goals, then you're probably not going to have a company for long. Right? If you're not making growth goals. Um, I mean, there's plenty of companies, like a barber shop, right? You got a barber shop, you're like, all right, I've got I got my shop and I've got five, five guys that are cutting hair, right? And myself. If you look at that and you're like, I don't need to grow anymore, that's fine. But you're going to be stuck in that salary range. If you want to grow the company, though, you have to have goals and you have to think, like, what am I doing? how much money are the guys bringing in? How much are they paying for their booth or whatever? And how much am I taking off the top? Not just in, ha 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 ha. You see what I did there? Right. But no, so you have to know and you have to look at all this. And it's very, I think, being the financial person for your own company and your own accountant, it gets into the nitty gritty. And so I just went off on a spiel there, but essentially, like you need to know. And I feel like that's just it. Like I feel like you can't just judge corporate on why they're trying to make money, because they have to make money. It's not an issue anymore. Once you have employees, you have to make money. If it's just yourself and you can live off of, if you only work six months out of a year and you can live off of that and you're happy with that, that's fine. Even if you have your family and you can take your family around on world trips off of just working 6 months a year or however, that's fine. But as soon as you have employees, you have to make money to pay them. Because if they're good employees and you're not paying them, they're going to leave. Also, if you're not paying them, they can sue you for that money. So now you need to have money to pay for a lawyer and all this other stuff. And it's, yeah.
So so you've just showed why the corporate structure exists, right? And
Yes.
why they do things the way they do.
Exactly.
When you're an employee with, a corporation, and there's great ones out there. There's great managers out there.
There are
There's
a
also
lot.
ambiguity and backstabbing with coworkers.
Yes.
And you know what? There's great coworkers too, though. So like, until you're in whatever you're into, you make the best of it, just like anything else, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you just showed us exactly why things work the way they work, right? Because we live in a society where people will fake slipping on the ice
Oh, yes.
and
Right.
sue you, and that's why you got to have insurance just outside on your sidewalk. And they,
Yeah.
people will, sue you for other things. So
And that's another thing too that people don't understand. Once you go for disability, the government's not technically paying you that. The company's paying you that. And same with with unemployment as well. The company pays that out. It's not a government thing. It's something that you pay into.
you pay it too.
Yeah, you pay into it. Don't get me wrong. You pay into it, and it is your money. So take it when you get it.
Yep.
I'm not saying don't take it, because that is the stupidest thing I've ever done, is not take unemployment, right? And I think we talked about it before. Like I got screwed out of like being contract. Like the contracts didn't come up. And I didn't take my unemployment. I'm like, well, it's my money though. So give me my money, please. And and it's not anything to be ashamed of either, right? Because especially if you're working contract, like if you're there and your contract is for 3 months, if you don't find another gig that's at the end of that 3 months, yeah, take it. It's going to help you out. It might just be a little bit, but it'll buy groceries or whatever. It'll pay for gas to go find this next contract. And like I've said before, contracts come and go. So even if you're sitting there saying like, oh, I got another contract coming up, I'm not going to take the unemployment, boom, that contract disappears. Now you're screwed, and you haven't been making money for the last however long, a week to 3 weeks to a month or whatever it is. Now you've lost out on all that money, and now you got to figure it out.
Okay, so you ready for a surprise question?
Sure.
You see yourself doing this for another 30 years? Contracting with corporate?
Not in my industry.
Okay.
No. So my industry, it's very hard to move up. It's just like anywhere else. You got to be at the right place at the right time. And you can move up, and it's also too about how much you're willing to sacrifice for the company. And like I said, I've got a family now, so my overtime, if it's on the weekend and I have my boy that weekend, no, straight up, I tell him no.
Right.
I'm not coming in. I have my boy. So a lot of times now companies don't like to hear that, because they're like, what do you mean? You want to have a family?
We ain't authorize that.
Yeah, they're like, we got to make money. So in my industry, no, because there's no backup plan in my industry. There's no like, I don't even say like, there's no exit strategy. you can work, and there's guys in my industry that are like 70 something that are still working, sitting behind a desk, and they love it. They're doing it because they love it, but they're also doing it because they didn't create their own 401k or whatever else, and they have no pension, and they just
That's interesting. Okay, so like you answered the question in two ways, right? So
yeah.
you don't see yourself doing it forever, right? Potentially,
Right.
but there's people who are doing it, right?
Oh yeah. Well,
That's cool.
and yeah, and partially is I know some guys in my industry that are literally like millionaires right now because they've done something else, not not
Wow.
they didn't become millionaires doing what I do, but they were directors and everything else, and they come back and work for the company because
Okay.
they enjoy the job that much, right? So there's those guys, but there's also the guys that are there who,
So we need to interview one of those dudes.
yeah,
What are you doing on the side, bro?
right. Well, one of them specifically that I'm thinking of, he makes like his own horror movies,
Oh,
and
wow.
so
See, that's
he'll go off, yeah, and he'll make like 2 movies a year, and then once the movies are done, he comes back and does what he does because he loves it, and the but there's some other guys that are there, and they've had their family their whole life, so they weren't able to like save and do all this because they were like buying kids food, baby formula, whatever it is. They weren't able to save. Maybe their wife got hurt, she couldn't work anymore, so now they're a one income thing. They weren't able to save or put into a 401k or something for retirement. They weren't able to bank on retirement, so now they're there the whole time. And then in the contract world, you don't get like, they're not giving you 401k. Well,
yeah,
now it's different. A lot of companies do offer contractors 401k, and they
interesting.
do offer other things such as like the matching of the first 10% or whatever it is in your 401k. They have that, but to um, to that though, some people weren't ever thinking about it, especially back in the day, like in the 90s or whatever, when some of these guys started, they weren't thinking about that, so and companies weren't offering it, so they didn't have it. So now they're still working 30 years later, and not to say 30 years of the gig isn't bad, but like they were 40 something then, and now they're 70 something now, so they're still
Yeah.
working, and they're not part, like I was saying before, it's partially because they love what they're doing, it's partially because they have to survive, and it's what they know, and it's pretty good money. Like there's not gonna lie, like I make a pretty good money when I'm working, but when I'm not working, then that's it, and that's the deal. It's the thing. So,
Right.
and yeah, and for me, I'm looking now just for something more stable, something that'll give me a future, um, and if I can. And like I was telling my friends, like now I'm actually looking for a lot of more places that'll let me work from home as well too, because I can do this and work from home. That way I can have my boy around, chill out, party or whatever. Not that 3-year-old parties, but he can do whatever he wants to do in the background, and I can just sit there on my computer and work, and I can still have him around, and I can take care of him. So once he gets older, it'll probably be easier. But and that's the thing too. Like I'm now falling back into the I want to work from home situation because I want to have as much time as I can with my kids. You know, so and that's another thing. And
So
even
that makes me think about two future shows we can do. Work from home type stuff. Let us know if you want to see that one, and then
yeah,
also military to civilian finances. I think would be
right.
important to talk about. So let
Yeah,
us know if you want to see that as well.
yeah. I think that would be a great one. Actually, I think we should put that on the board. Military to civilian finances. Because in the military you get that pension, and they don't even ask you; they take it out of your check from day one. Like,
Um,
yeah, that's bam, that's there. You can't even say no, I don't want that. I'll take that extra $75 or $50, whatever it is, a month, and I'll go buy some beer with it, or some new tires for my car or whatever. Like you don't even get that choice. It's there. Same with the life insurance and everything else. I think it was 250,000 if I was correct. So for
Yes.
the life insurance program, yeah. But I know once I got out the army, they were trying to say that it's going to be $200 a month for that, and I was like, I don't even have a job, bro. No. Like,
Right. And then you lose the opportunity to have it
yeah,
without having to piss and bleed and do all that stuff. So
yeah,
um, yeah, those are a lot of considerations.
yeah.
So like we've definitely just talked about the pros and cons of corporate and contracting, and even opening up your own contracting business. And if you have questions, hit us up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think we hit everything that we were supposed to talk about. Um, yeah. Oh, I think the only thing we touched on but we didn't miss is like what were the specific things that the New York needed if you wanted to have a government, if you wanted to say you were a veteran-owned business, like on the website?
You know what? Well, I will put the website in the video and on leftseatrightseat.com. I'll give you links to that.
Gotcha.
That's a whole deal, whole show unto itself. So if
Gotcha.
you guys are interested in looking at that and then looking it up in your state, we'll have references.
All right, cool. Yeah, I know it's different for every state, so
It is totally.
and probably every municipality too in your state. So
Yeah, you got to look all that up, and there's people who specialize in that too. So
right, right. Cool, cool. Well, I think that's all we got for today. How about you, Jeff? You got anything else to say, or?
that's it. Go out and make that money, y'all.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks for coming back, Leslie Ricey. We're here again today, just throwing out, spitballing some information for you guys, helping you out and helping you think about things that if you come out and you want to contract, go to corporate, or even open your own business, just to help you out, think about those things. And by no means are we experts on these things, but we've lived in the world, and we both tried to open our own business and looked into opening our own business and doing those things and what comes with that. And we're still, I mean, I'm still looking into opening another business, that'll help thrive and, help me work from home, like I've been saying. So,
And I'm sick of lawyers, so
that's another story on itself too. So, all right. So, yeah. So thanks, guys. Come back next week. We'll be here. And that's it for today. Thanks.
cheers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Let's See Ricey. If you liked what you heard, just go ahead, hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends. And come back next week for another episode. And also follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all your other podcast venues. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you again later. Bye.
See ya.